In today's video, we're going to continue our 2022 NHL Draft review, as well as reviewing the rest of the prospect pool. Today, we're looking at the Ottawa Senators, and that's coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, today we're going to continue on with our 2022 NHL Draft review series that we started shortly after the 2022 NHL Draft. We've taken a little bit of a break from this series over the past week, but it's time to get back to it. We still have lots of teams to cover. So essentially how this is going to work is we're going to jump onto the computer. We're going to take a look at the summary first of the 2022 draft selections for this team. Then we're going to take a look at each prospect a little bit more in depth just to learn a little bit more about them. And then we're going to take a look at some of the other top prospects that are still remaining in this prospect pool that pose to have an impact on this team in the next year or two. So we're not going to cover every single prospect, but of course in the organization that can get quite long, but we're going to take a look at the most likely top ones, between 5 and 10 depending on each team. They're a little bit different on how deep their prospect pools are, and we'll go through each of them a little bit more in depth here as well and kind of see how deep the cupboards are heading into the 22-23 NHL season. So now let's jump onto the computer and get into the 22 draft selections. So here we have the summary for the prospects drafted by the Senators at the 22 NHL Draft. Of course, as you can see, they did not have a first-round pick. They did have a pick, of course, going into the draft, but traded that for Alex DeBrincat in a fairly substantial trade to really improve the roster right now. So after that, they took a variety of defensemen, forwards, and a goalie. 9 prospects here altogether. Let's look at each one individually. We got Philip Norberg was their first selection here, 6'4", 207-pound left shot defenseman from Sweden. He was taken into the second round, number 64 overall, with their first pick of the draft. Looks like he put up 27 points in 42 games and also getting 88 penalty minutes playing in the Swedish Junior League last year while getting a few games at the higher level. So this guy looks like a promising future left shot D for the Senators. We also got Oscar Pettersson as well, a right winger with a right shot, also from Sweden, 18 years of age, 6'2", 198 pounds, taken number 72 overall, third round pick, put up 36 points in 46 games, including 25 goals. So another Swedish prospect here with some good size and some good hands. Pettersson could be a future player here, playing on the wing for the Sens as well. Now, next up, they took Thomas Hemera, who's another interesting defenseman. This player from the Czech Republic, 18 years of age, number 87 overall, left shot, 6 feet tall, 185 pounds. He's actually already signed his ELC as well, so I expect him to probably make the jump to North America, maybe a little bit sooner than the other two prospects, but obviously more of a defensive style defenseman, as you can see in the games he played last year. Not much offense there to report from, not many penalty minutes either, but a good defensive defenseman. You get Stephen Halliday up next, a left shot centerman, 6'3", 213 pounds. First player taken out of the, that's not European, out of Canada, from Ajax, Ontario. A little bit of an older player, 20 years of age though, so a bit of a late bloomer. Been playing in the USHL for Dubuque, so obviously putting up 95 points in 62 games this year. Was a nice breakout season. Finally get him on the radar of some more NHL scouts. In the Sens will give him a shot here with a 4th round pick. Then they took Jorian Donovan, left shot defenseman, born in Ontario, 18 years of age, 6'1", 182, 5th round pick now, 136 overall, playing for the Hamilton Bulldogs. He is the son of former NHLer Sean Donovan, of course, who also works for the Senators organization. No huge surprise. I think we could have penciled in here that the Sens were likely going to take this player at some point, and this is a good spot to take him. 22 points in 64 games last year. We got Cam O'Neill, another right winger. This one's an American-born player, 6 feet tall, 182 pounds, 5th round pick, 143 overall here. Didn't get a lot of action last year in the USHL, but certainly somebody, obviously, the Sens scouting team who have done a pretty good job. Obviously seen something in this player that they certainly are fond of. Next up, the Sens once again go back to Sweden. They take themselves a goaltender who's still 17, won't turn 18 years of age until September. 5th round selection at 151st overall. They take Kevin Ridley, so a young goaltending prospect. Of course, right now they have some good, solid goalie prospects ahead of him, but that's fine with his age. He's going to need probably 3 to 4 years before he really makes the jump here, have any shot at the NHL, but of course he could make the jump to North America a little bit sooner than that, maybe in 2 years. We got Theo Wahlberg, the next pick, a left shot defenseman, 18 years of age, 6'3", 187, a 6th round pick, 168th overall. Of course, also another player. Yes, you guessed it, from Sweden. No big shocker here. This defenseman has a little bit more offensive flair to his game. 23 points in 46 games, while also putting up 34 penalty minutes in the Swedish Junior League. So certainly another interesting D prospect. And of course, you get Tyson Dick, a left shot centerman. 5'11", 166, a little bit smaller, Canadian-born from BC, 7th round selection, 206 overall, playing in the BCHL, which is a league a little bit lower than Major Junior here. 75 points in 54 games, which is a nice showing. I wonder if he'll make the jump to a higher level league here for the coming season. Looking at the rest of the prospect pool, we're going to start with the goalies, and the top goalie prospect in the system right now is Mads Sogaard. He's 21 years old currently, a Danish goalie, 6'7", 196 pounds, got a huge frame, has been playing for the Belleville Senators here. He's got about 42 games of pro experience at that level and a couple games in the NHL to his experience level now, after completing a couple of seasons in the Western Hockey League for Medicine Hat. This goaltender is, I think, the reason why we've seen the Sens be comfortable moving like Joey Daccord in the expansion draft last year. They traded Philip Gustafsson this year. Sogaard, in my opinion, is the best chance at having a goalie of the future who can be your prime #1 starter for years to come. I think he still needs a couple of years before he's going to be able to be in that spot, but this is the guy they're counting on to hopefully fill that role. We got Kevin Mandolese as well, who was a 6th round pick back in 2018, still developing, 6'4", 197 pounds from Montreal. Like I said, 21 now. He's got a couple of pro seasons under his belt after completing the junior career for Cape Breton. The time so far has been split between Belleville and the East Coast League. Nothing real jumping out at you here as being an NHL goalie just yet here. Decent prospect. I think his ceiling, though, probably would be to be a backup, but I'm not even sure that that's going to happen. We'll have to wait and see. He might be a later blooming goaltender. That wouldn't be surprising. Of course, I don't think he's got quite the pedigree here that Sogaard does, but still an interesting guy who can be part of the tandem in Belleville likely for a while. But then you also got Levi Merilainen, who's another interesting goalie prospect here, a Finnish goalie. He's 19 now, 6'2", 178. Sens drafted him in 2020 in the 3rd round, number 71 overall. He's played a couple of seasons, or actually 1 season, sorry, in the OHL for Kingston. Had a pretty solid showing overall, made the playoffs, played a couple of rounds, but unfortunately couldn't go any further. The numbers are not the most flattering, but Merilainen is expected to play for his team at the World Juniors here as well. And then, of course, on to defense, you get Jake Sanderson, who's expected to be a star left shot defenseman for the starters. He'll likely start as a second pair guy this coming year. Of course, he was a number 5 overall pick in 2020. Of course, they also drafted Timmy Stützle that year as well. Of course, they had the San Jose first rounder as well as their own. Sanderson, son of former NHLer Jeff Sanderson, played a couple of seasons at the University of North Dakota, putting up some impressive numbers, and he's 6'2", 185. By all accounts, expected to be a future NHL star. You get Tyler Clevin as well, another University of North Dakota. There is a joke that a lot of Sens fans call the University of North Dakota the Senators as their team name, mainly because they've had so many prospects they've drafted that's gone through that program. Clevin's 20 now, 6'4", 200 pounds, so he's got good size, good rugged, more defensive style defenseman, a little bit of offense in him, but not a whole lot. Clevin is probably going to be a little bit longer getting to the NHL. Expected to play his 3rd season at North Dakota this year. I think it's possible he might sign at the end of the year when the college season wraps up and turn pro. Then you got Lassie Thompson, a really interesting right shot defenseman who's 21 now. He's taken into 2019 draft, number 19 overall, 1st round pick. 6 feet tall, 190 pounds. Pretty good skater, good puck mover. Certainly has some potential offensive flair. I can see Lassie Thompson maybe being a top 4 right shot D someday, at the very least being a 3rd pair guy in the short term. I do expect, obviously with the Sens right now, their D core is kind of in transition, and I think Thompson projects like he has a good chance to be a part of that or be a good trade chip to another team. But I really like his game. I think he will be an NHLer. Then you get Jacob Bernard Docker, another University of North Dakota alumni here. He's now 22, 6 feet, 190, completed 3 seasons at Nodak before turning pro. Had a solid year last year, spending the whole year in Belleville, the American Hockey League, of course. Obviously with limited action for the last couple of seasons due to the pandemic. But he played in 58 games, put up 9 points, had the chance to play some NHL games at the end of the year. didn't really look too bad. I think that the Sens hope that he'd be a top 4 right shot D long term. I guess the jury's still out between him and Lassie Thompson. We're hoping at this point that at least one of them will make the jump and be a full-timer in that spot in the near future. On to the forwards here, the top 4 prospects. Shane Pinto expected to be a dominant player this year, at least a full-timer. Hard to say how dominant he'll be. Last year, he was supposed to be a top rookie and have a big impact, but of course, he ran into a severe shoulder injury early on. But of course, he's 21 now, was a second-rounder in 2019, a real solid two-way center, likely going to start on the third line, but it wouldn't be surprising if he works his way into a top 6 role down the road. He's just a real good, smart player who you can play in pretty well any given situation and get success from. You've also got Ridley Greig, another first-rounder from 2020. He's left shot from Alberta. He's 19, playing in the Western Hockey League. When he was drafted for Brandon, had a chance to play a bit in Belleville here as well. Ridley Greig is expected to likely play for Canada, the August tournament for the World Juniors. He's a player who plays with a lot of tenacity, good forechecker, good speed, has some offense to his game, but he's also a kind of guy who can agitate you and be really hard to play against. And I know Pierre Dorian himself has said he sees him being a star in the league down the road. Time will tell. We also have Igor Sokolov, another interesting winger who was, again, kind of like Drake Batherson, came out of the Cape Breton program in the Quebec League, bit of a late bloomer, didn't play, higher level hockey, so he's a little bit older. He's 22 now, he's 6'3", 222 pounds. Certainly had good success at the American Hockey League level, putting up 50 points last year in 64 games for the Belleville Sens, getting into 8 games at the NHL level for call-ups when they had injuries. I think a little more seasoning, and he should have a shot to hopefully make it. Next, we have Angus Crookshank, a left winger, 22 years old from BC. Was a 5th round pick, in 2018. Taking his time getting into pro hockey because he played 3 years of U.S. college hockey at the University of New Hampshire, where he had a decent amount of success. He joined the Belleville Sens last year after turning pro and signing his contract, and really had a hot start. He put up 16 points in 19 games to end the season, so that was certainly a nice addition for him. It'd be nice to see if he can continue to pick that up this year. I do think Crookshank is maybe a little bit more of a longer shot to make the NHL in the next couple of years, but he'd be a little bit of a late bloomer because of all the time in college, but still could be a player in a year or two down the road. Next up, we have Victor Lodin, a left winger, of course, Swedish player, 6'2", 185 pounds. Was a 4th round pick back in 2019 and just made the jump this past year to North America after completing a few seasons in Sweden after being drafted. He had a chance to play 1 NHL game near the end of the season. He played 10 games for Belleville, putting up 8 games. So like Crookshank, was a late addition to the Belleville Senators, but looked really good and helped that team down the stretch in their playoff push. So it's a couple of interesting guys that are, they're not super young, 22, 23 years old, but they still have a lot of potential and could have an impact here down the road. We also have Robbie Herventi, another left winger who is now 19, 6'3", 198. I believe he's going to be playing for Finland too at the August World Junior Championship Tournament. He was a 2nd round pick, 33 overall in 2020. Of course, he had a chance to appear last year for a full season at the American Hockey League with Belleville, putting up 33 points in 70 games. So certainly a bit of a learning curve for him. I think he had a good start, but then kind of tailed off, which is normal. But he had a solid season playing in Liga before making the jump. Tyler Boucher, of course, is a right winger, 1st round pick in 2021. He's a player who's going to be, highly watched because of where he was picked. 10th overall for a player of this caliber is something that I know a lot of people criticize. I know the Sens are confident in his abilities. I do believe that the odds of him being an NHL player are really good. I just don't know he's going to be a high-end player. I think he's going to be a bottom 6 player, a third-line guy who's a really good forechecker, good physical player, who's got a touch of offense and, able to drop the gloves if need be. Of course, he started playing at BU, didn't work out, made the jump back to junior where he can play the Ottawa 67s, be right next door to his NHL team, and had a decent start. So, be interesting to see how things go, but this is a big year for Tyler Boucher. Of course, a son of former NHLer Brian Boucher as well. It's something the Sens seem to like. A lot of NHL second-generation stars in their system. Next, we have Zach Ostapchuk, who's a left winger, born in Alberta, 19 years of age now, 6'3", 198 pounds. He was a 2nd rounder in the 2021 draft, completed his 4th season for the Vancouver Giants this past year, scoring 26 goals in 60 games for a total of 43 points as well and 58 penalty minutes. So not a bad showing to end his junior career. Also had a monster playoffs, which was kind of like a coming out party, where he put up 23 points in 12 playoff games for the Giants. I do expect him to likely have some success here as well. And it might be a little bit longer getting to the NHL compared to some of the guys we talked about today, but still a player with a lot of upside. Next, we have center iceman Philip Daou, left shot center from Ontario, 20 years of age, 6 feet tall, 169 pounds, was a 6th rounder in 2020, just won the Memorial Cup at the St. John Sea Dogs. Of course, he split this past year from his time with the Moncton Wildcats, which is where he started his junior career. Of course, he's from Ontario, played in the Quebec League, though. Obviously played a couple seasons. Second year in Moncton, he was traded to St. John, put up 47 points in 38 games with the Sea Dogs to finish the year, and then had a strong Memorial Cup as well. Real solid two-way player. Got his entry-level contract signed with the Senators now, participated at a development camp. Again, a player who's going to need a little bit more time, but I think he has potential to be a middle six center. Then you got Mark Kostelic, who likely is going to be the Sens' 4th-line center in the not-too-distant future. He's 6'3", 210 pounds, 23 years old now, American-born player from Arizona. Spent time, obviously, in the Western Hockey League with the Calgary Hitmen. Has played in a decent amount of AHL games for Belleville. Had a chance to play 16 games in the NHL last year. And didn't really look out of place, so he's still in the prospect category. But I wouldn't be surprised if, even if he doesn't make the team at a training camp, that he works his way onto the team to first chance and likely sticks. And within a year or so will be the full-time 4th-line center for the Ottawa Senators. And lastly, here we're going to take a look at Cole Reinhardt, a left winger from Calgary, Alberta, 22 years of age, 6 feet tall, 200 pounds. Was a 6th rounder back in 2020, 181st overall. Played his first NHL game at the end of last year to get a taste of it. He played in 70 AHL games last year as well, putting up 30 points. Of course, before that, he had put up 12 points in 33 games. Hard to say what his projection is. I'm not sure that his NHL ceiling is super high, but another prospect to keep your eye on. So that's the 22 NHL draft selections for the Ottawa Senators, along with their other remaining top prospects. I think for the most part, they have a pretty interesting group of prospects here to take a look at. Be interesting to see how these players make out in the future. But obviously with a team full of young players already at the NHL level, they have lots of young talent signed long-term that are poised to be big parts of this team, like Brady Tkachuk, Josh Norris, Drake Batherson, Alex Formanton, Eric Branstrom. They've all recently made the jump, of course, from being prospects just a few years ago and are now being built around with guys like Claude Giroux, Alex DeBrincat, Thomas Chabot, etc. This is a pretty deep team that's going to be taking some big strides forward, but they're still going to need to keep this prospect pool coming to make sure that they continue to add the youth injected here into this team as we go along. So let me know your thoughts on the prospects and how they'll impact this team here in the next little while. Of course, if you're new to this channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the latest NHL news, rumors, analysis, as well as all kinds of prospect talk on all 32 NHL teams. Thank you for watching, and I'll catch you next time.